Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Rosie and here we do lots of crafts, vlogs, and random things. So for today's video, I wanted to show you guys how I'm going to make my wrist pad, and I'm basically just covering it in crochet, specifically some puff flower crochet little things. Okay, sorry, I live near an air base for Air Force, so I have things, jets, whatever, flying all around me 24/7. By the way, if you hear or see any kids in the background, ignore it. Okay, so yeah, this isn't going to be an exact how-to video, just a little guide as to how I did it. So if any of you would like to try it yourselves, you guys can kind of get an idea of how to do it. Basically, I just used 2 colors of yarn. You guys can add all the colors that you guys want. This is just what I added. It's literally the only yarn colors like that they had in big bulk that they had here at Daiso. So, I mean, it's still cute, but you know. Anyways, I will be showing you guys how I make the little puff flowers and how I attach them to the rest of my work. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so far this is what I have done. Now I did start all of this off of camera because this has basically been like 2 days worth of crocheting. These flowers are kind of tedious. They take a while if you aren't like a pro at making them like myself. And honestly, I'm using pretty thin yarn, so I'm having to double the yarn and then to make them as well. So it's kind of making things a little more difficult. So anyways, this is my wrist pad that I will be covering in my crochet puff flowers, and I like it. It's very like me, flowers, plants, you know, but I do use it a lot. So you can kind of see where like the white is kind of getting like yellowed out. But yeah, just to make things a little cute, I wanted to cover it with my crochet flowers. And basically, as I make the flowers, I add them onto my piece and all the way down. And honestly, it hasn't been matching up perfectly. I've been having to make the flowers kind of like to the side, like here on some of them, they aren't even complete. They're basically like only 3 petals. Or on this one, it's only 4 petals instead of the 5 that I'm making, just to make it fit on the edge accordingly. And basically what I plan on doing to put it all together on my wrist pad, I'm just going to take some white thread and try to match it up to, because my wrist pad has some threading on the edges already here. So that's basically what I'm going to be threading it onto, just catching the edges of my piece and then sewing it onto those border sewing edges. Hopefully you guys can understand. But anyways, I'm just going to sew carefully along the edges, and yeah, just to not make it any more exhausting for myself. I don't even have a pattern for like the color scheme or anything either. I'm just alternating between, like, if I see 2 blues, I'm doing a green next, and so on and so forth. But let me show you guys how I am doing the puff flowers and then how I put them together. Alright, so to start off my next flower example that I'm going to be giving to you guys, I'm basically going to add another flower right here in this section. And basically, since it goes from blue and blue, right here in between, I want to add a green flower. So that means I'm going to start off with a blue center. So Alright, so to get started, I'm basically going to do a magic circle, and then, okay, once we have our magic circle, I'm just going to crochet 10 single crochets inside of the magic circle. And again, I'm using 2 strands of yarn just to make it a little thicker, and that way I can use my 5mm crochet hook. Alright, so once I have my 10 single crochets, I'm going to tighten up the magic circle and slip stitch into the very first single crochet that I made. And then chain 1, and after I chain 1, then I cut and tie off. So that basically finishes off the center piece to the flower. And so basically you're going to be making a puff stitch into every single stitch. Well, the puff stitch will start on 1 stitch. You're gonna make half of the puff stitch, and then the other half of the puff stitch on the next chain. So I'll go ahead and show you guys. So I insert my hook into the first stitch, and now I'm going to grab my green yarn, bring it through, and then I'm going to make 3 chains. So once I have my 3 chains, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that same stitch, and then yarn over and bring up that loop, and then I'm going to make sure I stretch that loop all the way up to where the 3 chains, and then yarn over and bring it through those 2 first loops, yarn over, and then we're gonna go into the same stitch and bring up another loop, yarn over, and only go through 2 loops, yarn over, and then go into that same stitch again, bring up the loop, yarn over, and bring through 2 loops again. So basically you should have 1, 2, 3, and then your starting chain. So right now we have 4 loops on our yarn, on our hook, sorry. So now we're going to yarn over and then go into the next stitch, and then we're gonna repeat these 3 that we did over here on the next chain. So yarn over into the next one, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring through 2 loops, and then repeat in that same stitch. Yarn over, bring through 2, yarn over again, bring up the yarn, and then bring through 2 loops. So now that we have a total of 7 loops on our hook, now we can yarn over and bring the hook through all the loops. And basically this is going to make your first like puff from your flower, like the puff petal on your flower. And then you're just going to make 3 chains. So 1, 2, 3, and then into that same stitch that we made our last half of the puff petal, go into that same, sorry. Alright, go into that same stitch and then slip stitch. And you're basically going to repeat this for all 5 petals until you're done, and then you can cut and tie off. But for me, I like to go ahead and as I work through each petal, depending on where each petal is going to be connected to my piece, I go ahead and connect it as I'm working the flower. So I'll go ahead and show you on this next puff petal. That way I can show you guys how I connect each flower. So again, I'm just going to make another petal. My yarn is literally everywhere. Alright, so again, into the next stitch, I'm going to be making the first half of the puff. And then into the next stitch, and 3. Alright, so now that I have my second puff, I am going to connect it to my work. And basically I like to connect it where every single petal, the top of the petal is. So on this one I'm going to start over here. And I basically flip over my work. And then I go into the center of the petal. Alright, so you can kind of see where I'm at the top of this petal where I want to attach it. And then I bring my yarn through and then slip stitch it. So I know that was kind of hard to see, but I just basically slip stitch into the top of the petal and then make 3 chains and then slip stitch back into the base of the petal that we were working on. And then that basically connects my flower to my workpiece. So it's basically looking like this, and you basically just have to remember that as you work on your flower, the work is like going clockwise on the outside. So I basically attach it first on the right side of wherever I want it attached on my piece. So right here would be, and then the next flower stitch, I kind of plan accordingly to where the next one would be. So once I finish my next petal, it would go attached to right here. And then the third one or the next one would be at this petal. And then I would just finish the last puff stitch petals. Alright, so now that I have finished my third petal, I am going to attach it. When you flip it over, I'm going to attach it right here in between these two. So I am going to slip stitch and then chain 3. And then flip over your work again to continue the petal, and then slip stitch to the bottom. Alright, so now that I've got my fourth petal, I am going to join it right here at the top of this one. Slip stitch, chain 3, and then join to the bottom. And then my last puff petal for my flower doesn't need to be attached to anything on my piece. So that one I can just do it without having to worry about flipping over anything or attaching anything. Alright, and then since we're not attaching the last petal to anything, I can just do my 3 chains and then slip stitch to the bottom. And then personally, I just do this myself, but to cut and tie off, I just chain 2 and then cut and then pull the yarn. and that is it. So that is how I make my flowers and also attach them to my piece one by one. And I think once I finally get to the end, I'm probably just going to fill in the little gaps on the edges, like on this side maybe, with like half flowers, like how I did on this side, just to make it flush against the wrist pad. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep working on these, and I'll get back to you guys to finally attach it to the wrist pad. Alright guys, so I finally finished the entire thing to cover the wrist pad, and it honestly took me a couple of days because we got really busy. So anyways, this is basically how much I have done, and although it's not covering like from edge to edge, it's definitely okay, don't worry. Once I attach it on one side, I am basically planning on stretching it and then attaching it to the other side. That way I know that it's like nice and it lays like pretty flat on it, instead of having it to be like kind of bumpy because of the way that the flowers attach to each other. But yeah, so to attach it, I'm actually going to be using just a regular needle and thread. The thread that is used on this wrist pad, it's honestly kind of thick, and I want to match it as much as possible. So I am going to be using this like butted and carpet thread. It's a lot thicker than regular thread. Anyways, this is a lot thicker. It's not as thin as regular yarn. Let's just get to it. Alright, so now I have both ends fully sewn on, and now all I need to do is finish sewing off the sides over here. And as I do that, I'm just going to shove in any strands from the actual crochet flowers that I made just into the wristband, so that way I don't have to actually have to sew in or weave. Jesus. Alright, and this way I don't actually have to weave in any ends, so yeah. Alright, so I'll get back to you guys once I'm done with both sides. BRB. Alright guys, so the wrist pad is finally done, and oh my goodness, like, I can't believe I didn't do this any sooner. It honestly makes the whole PC set like a whole different vibe. I don't know. So I'll go ahead and show you guys what it looks like with the whole thing on and turned on. So here is the setup. I'll go ahead and show you guys. Alright, so here it is, everything complete and put together. Honestly, it makes the whole setup like a little more girly, kawaii, if you may so think of. And I honestly love it. Like, you can't even tell where the stitches are on the side. Like, if you look really close, of course you can see them, but no one's gonna be flipping over your wrist pad, you know. But yeah, I mean, you honestly can't even tell. You can probably get away with saying that like you ordered this online or something, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I 100% love this, and if you guys are thinking of making one for yourselves, I 100% recommend it. And yeah, let me know if you guys want any more crochet PC accessories. I am totally down to make some more things for my PC setup. If you want a little if you want an in-depth like PC setup of everything that I have here going on, let me know down in the comments and I will more than gladly do a video for that. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, everyone who stayed through to the end, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.